We want to tell you more about that New York Times and Siena College poll we mentioned earlier. It surveyed 980 registered voters during the last week of February, and the results were concerning for President Joe Biden. Only 18% of respondents thought that they've personally benefited from Mr. Biden's policies. 40% of respondents say they did personally benefit from Trump's policies. Still, a CNN poll shows the race for president right now is a toss-up. The most recent numbers in a general election matchup continue to show no clear winner between the two, with Trump at 48% and Biden at 46%. Natasha LYNDSTAEDT is a professor of government at the University of Essex. She joins us now from Colchester, England. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So we know that Washington, D.C. holds its primary Sunday, and then Super Tuesday, we'll see 15 states and one U.S. territory hold elections. Polls show Trump leading by double digits over rival Nikki Haley. If she doesn't do well, is this the end for her?
Well, you would think it would be the end. This might be because she just might not have enough money to go forward. And she spent a lot on her campaign thus far, about $100 million compared to only $60 million for Trump, and it hasn't led to any victories in any of the states thus far. But she does have a strong backing among some moderate Republicans that may want her to stay in the race simply because Trump has so many issues going on, so many legal issues with 91 criminal counts, and also just due to the fact that he could make some sort of serious gaffe that might turn off voters. Because of the X factor of a Trump candidacy, she may have support to stay in it, but there isn't really any path to victory here for her. She's so far behind. And if we look at Super Tuesday, these states are going to use a winner-take-all method. And she's been gaining some delegates here and there by coming in second place, and she's not going to be able to benefit from that. And the other problem is that the primaries really bring out more extreme, more passionate voters, and she's winning not really with Republicans, but with independents. So it's possible she may stay in the race because she's gaining some attention. It's benefiting her. She has a national platform and attention on her. Maybe she thinks she needs to stay in it because anything can happen, but the math really isn't on her side.
Yeah. We heard from Trump speaking at a rally about his mugshot when he was indicted, saying that essentially it appeals to black voters. I just want to play some of that sound.
The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot. You know, they do shirts and they sell them for $19 a piece. It's pretty amazing. Millions, by the way, millions of these things have been sold. So I don't know if I'm proud of it or not proud of it.
I mean, people laugh when he said that. What did you think when you heard him say that?
It's just an incredibly racist thing to say. Now, of course, he is doing better with African-American voters today than he was doing, if you look at the polls at least, than he was doing in 2020. Biden still has a lead with African-American voters, but I think it points out something about his criminal issues. If you look at the primary voters, the Republican base, they don't care at all about his criminal liability here, there's a problem that he could be actually put in prison, that he could be a felon, that he could not even be able to vote. This almost seems to galvanize Republican voters and excites them, and that's been drawing in a lot more campaign funds. But if we look at the general election, how do people feel about that? And we have at least about half of Americans that, according to a recent poll in February, said they do want these trials, these court cases, to be finished up before the election, which is really important. And if we look back at a poll that was taken in 2023, it was 62% of Americans that felt that if he were convicted of a serious crime, then he should be barred from running for president. So while he is gaining some support from his hardcore voters due to all of his criminal issues, he's not going to win the general election if something serious happened and he were convicted.
Yeah, there's certainly so many cases that we are continuing to follow related to Donald Trump. But I want to turn to the battleground state of Michigan because we saw that push to abandon Joe Biden over his support for Israel in the war against Hamas in Gaza. More than 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the Democratic primary. People in other states are vowing to do the same. How could Joe Biden's support for Israel in this war hurt him in this election?
So it is hurting him definitely with Arab American voters and with younger voters. And we saw that in the state of Michigan, where 13% voted uncommitted. This compares to back in 2012, when there was a vote of 9% for uncommitted when Obama was running for president again. So there's definitely some angst, there's some disappointment and anger with the way that Biden has handled the war in Gaza. And he doesn't have a very good approval rating with younger voters, those that are, say, under 35. 70% disapprove with how he's handled the war in Gaza. So he has an uphill battle ahead of him, because he's not going to be able to make a complete U-turn with the war in Gaza. And he doesn't seem to be able to resonate and connect with Arab American and young voters on other issues. And in these swing states, like you mentioned, the state of Michigan, where there are 300,000 Arab Americans, this will make the difference. I mean, Biden only won Michigan by 154,000 votes. And there are Arab American voters in Arizona, in Georgia, other important swing states. And then, of course, the bigger issue is, how does he bring out younger voters? He's not doing very well with them. There's very low levels of enthusiasm for his candidacy. And if we look to the recent New York Times poll, there was about half of Democratic voters that don't want him to run again, that would prefer another candidate. Now, that doesn't mean they won't vote for him come November, but he has a lot of issues bringing back this very complex coalition of different voters that were able to help him win office in 2020.
Yeah. Professor NATASHA LINDSTAEDT from the University of Essex. Good to have you on the program as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.